Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Yeah, I guess I am welcoming you back because we are officially in the era of Workflows and Espressos every single Tuesday. I'm so excited to have you back, have you listening. I have missed this so much over the last couple of weeks. I think my last episode, maybe it was like 6 weeks ago when I recorded it, and it came out a couple of weeks later, and now it is already almost mid-April. So I'm super excited to be back, even more excited that Workflows and Espressos doesn't have an end in sight. Like, we're going to do this for this foreseeable future, and I could not be happier about it. Okay, so there's obviously more pressure now that I'm going to be doing this show every single week to create content that is helpful but not stale, and is engaging but not so engaging that you feel like you're listening to a non-helpful podcast. Ultimately, I wanted to make sure that this next era of Workflows and Espressos stayed true to everything that made last season so fun and so exciting and so hopefully educational, and turn that into something a little different for this new era, I guess I should say, of Workflows and Espressos. Okay. So today I guess I should go back a little bit. Let's go back even further. Happy spring, everybody. It is officially mid-April for me, which means that if you are in the mountains like I am, if you didn't listen to season 1, I am located in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It is officially like the sun is shining today, it honestly feels like I have new life being just like injected into my veins. And mud season is really difficult. I am originally from Florida, and I will say moving out here, the months of April and May are the hardest months for me to live here. In the winter, it is beautiful. Yes, it's very cold, but I am a bad snowboarder, but I still like to snowboard. And in the summer, of course, it's so beautiful and amazing and zero humidity and so warm. And I love all the fun summer things that Jackson has to offer. But spring is difficult. You are so ready for summer to be here. Yeah, summer to be here and winter to be over, that the in-between time I find to be really difficult. The only positive from a seasonality standpoint is it is really slow for us. So while we are prepping for summer, we are able to take a little bit of a breather. And I am actually leaving tomorrow to go wedding dress shopping in New York City, which I'm very excited about. And then I am heading to New Orleans for the Verma Spring Forum, and I hope to see many of you there. And for those of you that are in a beach destination, it has been hot for you for probably a little while, but you are also probably exhausted from spring break and hopefully winding down a little bit before you say hello to summer in just a couple of weeks, which is crazy to think about. Okay. So I wanted to acknowledge spring and summer. And now let's talk a little bit about what we're going to discuss today. So when I sat down months ago, I actually was counting my chickens before they hatched. Will had not asked me if I wanted to do any more episodes, but I had already started creating content for if I ever got the chance to have more episodes of Workflows and Espressos, some things that I wanted to talk about that I felt like were important to put energy into and bring light into and create conversation around. So one thing that I feel is so pertinent, especially really to any company, but to those companies that are kind of on this cusp of who do I want to be when I grow up? This episode is all about deciding what kind of company you want to be and how you can get there. I'm very excited. So, as you know, I like to talk, number one. And I also, at the very end of my episodes, really like to summarize everything that I've talked about into some digestible pieces of information that if you hear nothing else from my rambling during the episode, you at least get to take a couple of things with you. So we are going to do that. But first, I want to talk a little bit in depth about each of these steps that I believe lead you to creating and finding and deciding what kind of company you want to be. So let's get into it. Number one, the foundation of identity. So I think when you're first starting out as a vacation rental manager, you're not really thinking about who you want to be. You're just kind of trying to sustain and make sure that you build a business that can hopefully provide you with some income for yourself or your family or your business partner or your soon to be employees, right? Like it's kind of survival mode for a really long time. And I feel like once we get into this industry, you really don't know what to expect until you're actually in it. And then you're really freaking busy. But one thing that I think is so important and will allow you to move forward with this confidence and almost like be your source of truth through every single decision that you're faced with throughout your business's life cycle is figuring out what your identity is. Like, who do you want to be and how are you going to get there? So, a couple of examples of this. Your identity might be providing something for everyone. You are happy to take every single home on. Maybe you want to provide something for everybody. You don't want to be in the hyper luxe business. You also don't want to be in purely economy. You want to take a little bit of everything, and you're okay with building mass and having this larger company because you're not as particular about what home you want to bring on. Obviously, they have to fit within your brand standards, but you want to be able to provide something for everybody. And maybe that's your identity. Maybe your identity is purely luxury. If it does not look like this, it's not coming on my program. If it doesn't gross X amount of dollars, it's not going to be on my program. Whatever that criteria is, you might be purely economy. You might be only focused on developing a sustainable and eco-friendly program. You might be really focused on building mass in one destination. You might be really focused on being in a lot of destinations and not necessarily having mass. It's totally up to you and what fits in line with your identity within yourself, where you want your company to go and what your financial goals are. But it is paramount, in my opinion, that you have and develop that identity. Every single decision that you make from here will funnel up into that identity. Every owner that you talk to, which we'll get into, you're going to decide and know, probably pretty soon in the conversation, whether or not they fit into your identity of what your business is and what you ultimately want to work toward. And I think having this one thing, so to speak, allows you to move in a much clearer direction and will eliminate any distractions, which visionaries, I'm talking to you. It is very easy to get distracted by shiny new things and feel like we need to run toward the new cool thing or the new shiny object. And I think having this source of truth will really help you weigh that. Like, is this just a shiny object that I want to run toward and feel energized by? Or does this really fit in line with what I am trying to build and the overall goals and identity of my business? So we've got our identity. We're moving on. Now we need our vision and our values. So I think, there are definitely mixed feelings on having a vision and core values for your business. Number one, again, in those early stages, I think it's really difficult to come up with those when you're just trying to keep your head above water. And number two, those can change over time, right? Like, maybe one thing you believed in a couple years ago doesn't feel true to you anymore and it's something else. And that is totally fine. But I do think having a vision and core values associated with your company that fall underneath that identity of who you are and what your business is allows you, again, to steer your company's direction and make decisions. It will help you with hiring. It will help you with deciding what guests you do and do not allow in your properties. Once you know what your identity is, like, how are you going to share this with the world? And to me, like, that comes in the shape a lot of times of your vision and your values. And I think that incorporating these onto your website with your team, I've always thought about the Ritz-Carlton, which you might think this is culty or cool. I think it's cool. The Ritz-Carlton asks, or they used to, I don't know if they still do anymore, all of their employees, they carry a card with them at all time with the Ritz-Carlton values. Someone's going to have to fact check me on this, but I feel, unless I had like a fever dream, I feel very strongly that this is real. But I thought it was really interesting, right? Because they're kind of embedded into each employee. You know the values of your company. You know And honestly, like this is kind of a mid train of thought, which is very me. Like, I think a lot of times, for companies that I've worked with, it can be difficult when you're on the phone with an angry guest or you're trying to decide whether or not you should refund this person or credit the owner on their whatever, like daily tasks that we're faced with or decisions. And I think if you know the core values of the business, it can really help you make those decisions, and you feel empowered as an employee if you have that opportunity to make those kind of decisions. Like, you can ask yourself, okay, I'm talking to this guest. This is the situation. This is how they're treating me. This is how I'm treating them. This is their experience. Like, and our core value is X. Does refunding them like lead back to staying true to this core value? If yes, then like, okay, sounds like we should refund them. If not, I understand that not everything is so black and white, but I do think it's really, really helpful and empowering and feels comfortable to employees. I talked about this in the series. No, that's not right. Season finale of season 1. I talked about like how empowering employees and giving them decision-making power and being very clear with team members on what your goals are helps them row the boat that is your company in the right direction. And I think that's very true with a vision and values, and a really good way to start that practice. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about with the boats, number 1, I really like metaphors. And number 2, you should go back and listen to episode 7 of season 1. Okay, let's talk about building your brand. So a couple of friends of mine own a company, which you may or may not have heard of. You probably all have heard. It is called Beach Ball Properties, and they are located in Orange Beach, Alabama. And when I think of branding, I think of Hunter and Ginger Harrelson. If you have ever seen Hunter and Ginger Harrelson, they are probably wearing, Ginger has like a beach ball purse collection. Hunter's got some beach ball belts. They both have beach ball blazers. Like, you know what their brand is, you know what their company's called. Like, you could not miss them. Okay. And I absolutely freaking love it because they are so committed to their brand and their company and their values that their team freaking loves it. And they actually call their team the Beach Ballers, which I'm obsessed with. And I think Hunter and Ginger have done such an incredible job of, number 1, branding their company, and number 2, conveying their brand identity, not only to their team members, but to their homeowners, to their guests, and to the industry as a whole. They have set themselves apart as industry leaders. And so much of that is due to the brand that they have. And this cohesiveness with the brand that really is like end to end, right? Like from owners and guests to employees to the industry, really allows them to expand in such a meaningful way. And what I mean by that is like, we know who Beach Ball is. We know what they do. We know who they are. We know what kind of service they provide. And we understand that like their customers in every form are raving fans because they have such a strong, almost like emotional tie to their brand. And I think it is so badass. And they're not sponsoring this episode. I just actually like really believe in what they've done with branding. And I think it's such a cool example because I think that once you have this identity that's so important to you, and once you have your vision and values, you have to build a meaningful brand and whatever that looks like for you. And it has to take the shape and like embody this vision and these values that you hold true to. So if you are at that stage of developing what kind of company you want to be and you're looking to build your brand, I highly suggest either reaching out to Hunter and Ginger or just giving a glance at their website or looking at them at a conference in their team. Like, trust me, you'll see them. I don't know. I think this authenticity and consistency will do any company well, particularly as it relates to the book direct movement, which we have also talked about in season 1. And you know that I am a big proponent of. Okay, so we have our brand, we have our vision, we have our values, and of course we have our strong foundation, which is our identity, who we are as a company, where we want to go, what we want to do from here. Now we're going to tie that into our operations, which I think this is how you put it all to use and why it really, really matters. So Whether it is in little decisions every single day or one big decision every 6 months, you will be faced with something operationally that will impact people in your business that you will have to decide on based on what your identity is and what direction you want to go in. I think a really concrete example of this would be trying to choose which properties you want to bring on. So say you have an influx of leads, you have 20 properties in your pipeline. Are you going to take every single one of these properties on, whether they are economy or luxury or somewhere in the middle? One of them is going to make $50,000 a year. One of them is going to make $400,000 a year. Are you going to take only the top half of these properties or only the top 2%? That this foundation of what your identity is will help you make these operational decisions. It will help you staff. The previous company that I worked for, it was very important to us that we had a very low property to employee ratio. So for every one property, rather than having 30 employees to every one property, we wanted that number to be pretty small. So we knew that every time we brought on X number of houses, we had to hire another person, whether it was in the form of a maintenance technician or an owner relations team member or a leadership team member. And that was part of our identity because we had decided part of who we are is that we want to provide this level of service that is so meticulous and so detailed and so over the top that we have a pretty high payroll, but we're taking on homes that gross over X amount. And I really think that went back to who we wanted to be as a company. So a couple of examples there operationally, but essentially what I just mean is the impact of your identity on your staffing and your guest experiences, on your property selection is significant. And this foundation should allow you to build a strategic plan that will allow you to make operational decisions pretty quickly on the fly without feeling like you either say yes to everything or say no to everything. We're not in the market of doing that, okay? Now let's talk about adapting and evolving. You guys know me, okay? I think I preach this on every single episode. Pivoting is really important to me. And as someone who, my fiance tells me that it is difficult for me to admit when I'm wrong, which is really funny, but which is not true, by the way. I do think that admitting when we're wrong and moving in a different direction, say our identity is purely luxury and we do that for a year and we realize that it's financially not going to be sustainable because there aren't enough properties, right? Okay, then pivot and change your direction. I'm not saying that you have to pick something and stick with it forever. I think that adapting and evolving is one thing our industry is so incredible at. And one of the most important things I think needs to be true in any relationship that you have, particularly on the business side, when I think that it sometimes can be hard and embarrassing to admit when you have made a decision that might not have been best for the business, or you've chosen a tech provider. Gosh, there are so many friends that I have in the industry and we have these conversations all the time. Hey, I picked this software. I spent $20,000 and it's been 6 months and I've had the worst experience of my life. And now I feel like I can't cancel because I've spent $20,000. Cancel it. Life is too short. I know that $20,000 is a lot of money, but do not be afraid to adapt and evolve and make sure that you are better every single day, even if that route is harder. Even if that means that there's going to be frustration from you and maybe from your employees and maybe from your owners. Obviously, don't make a decision that's going to, make everybody want to quit, but explain and provide context to the decisions that you're making. And don't be afraid to try things that might not work out and then be like, okay, that didn't work. And here's everything we tried. Here's why it didn't work. Here's why we're going to pick a new software now. And this is what the timeline is going to look like for that transition. I think that what makes businesses really, really great is being able to move quickly and deliberately and evolve with this ever-changing landscape that is our industry. And I think that those of us who have been around in travel and in vacation rentals since 2018, I think I've seen so many versions of this industry and have had to pivot so many times that it's just second nature to us. But that being said, like gather feedback as well. Gather feedback from your employees, from your owners, from your guests. We talked about this in episode 7 too. And that feedback will allow you to tailor your strategic goals, but also know if this identity of who you are might need to change a little bit because of either what the industry needs or what you need as a business or what your customers need, including your employees. I am really excited to head to New Orleans in just a couple days. I'm recording this on a Wednesday and I'm going to be flying to New Orleans on Sunday. So I'm super excited. I'm actually going to record the next episode in New Orleans. I have not decided if I want to ask somebody to be on the podcast with me or I don't know. That kind of like got my wheels turning, but I am really excited to be in New Orleans. There is something so, I don't know, like something that energizes me so much about being around my peers in this industry. It like gets me so giddy and excited, which sounds silly, but I don't know. It's a grind every single day. And being able to spend time with people that share in that grind is special. And I think something that we have in our industry that a lot of other industries don't have. I was sitting on a panel maybe a week ago and there were people that were asking in the chat, like, what do I do about this? Or I have questions on this. And what's so cool about our industry is there is not a lot of people that you find that hold things so close to their chest that it's difficult. Like Hunter and Ginger, I talked about them earlier. I know that you could reach out to them and be like, hey, can you tell me how you branded your company and like how you embedded that into the core of who you are and who your team is and what you want it to be? And they would sit down and be like, yeah, let's have a drink. Like, I'll tell you all about it. And I think that that is so cool. And a lot of industries, like I just said, hold a lot of information close to their chest or close to the vest. Have you noticed that people say both chest and vest? I think I usually say chest. Anyway, unique about our industry. I absolutely love it. And I don't know, when I'm exhausted and sometimes at the end of the year, I'm like, I need a social break. I truly don't think that I don't know. Is this true? Yeah, it's true. I find it, I don't know if I could ever be a part of any other industry. I don't know. I just turned 30, so I'm going through that weird quarter life crisis anyway. Okay, let's wrap it up. I'm sorry. You've been listening to me ramble, but I am very excited about this episode and I feel so strongly about it because I think that it is really hard to pick your one thing or your two things that you're going to run toward no matter what. Particularly as new softwares and new shiny objects and new homes and new business models are popping up every single day. So I appreciate you listening to my rambling and I hope that you got something from it. But if you need a little recap, let's go it. Let's go it quickly. Okay. Number 1. Discover your identity. You have to decide who you want to be and who your company needs to be before you expect anybody to get on board with you. Pick a direction and move in that direction all the time. Every decision that you make, everything better lead to that identity. That is your foundation. Number 2, create your vision and your core values. Reiterate them often and make sure they're clear. Tell them to your employees, tell them to your owners, have them on your website for your guests to see. That is going to be who you are, and it funnels down from this foundation that you have laid that is your identity. Number 3, use steps 1 and 2 to help you build a brand. Something that feels true to you, something that feels like it is needed in your community or in your area, and something that resonates with your team members as well. Number 4, weave your identity into your operations. Does not matter what part, from handling your guest issues to targeting new homeowners to hiring, like allow that identity to be a part of everything. And number 5, as always, pivot when necessary. I will say this all the time. I have said this all the time. It is never too late to rewrite your story. don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to cancel the software agreement and go with somebody else. I know I've been using that example a lot, but I think it's a lot of that is what we're facing right now. Don't be afraid to, let go of that leadership member that you brought on that you thought would be a good fit that isn't. It's hard, but lots of times the hard things are the right things. I am so lucky to be back with you guys, and I'm so grateful for this time that we have together every single week. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have an amazing rest of your April, and let's do this next week, okay? I'll keep you posted on Verma Spring. I'll see you guys in New Orleans. Next time you see me, I'm going to have some beads and maybe one of those huge ass beers. Actually, no, I'm on a wedding diet. I will be drinking a tequila soda with beads. Okay. Thank you guys. Also, wait, hold on, one more thing. Okay. If you want some input into any future episodes, or if you have any questions or comments or feedback, I love to hear it. Of course, feel free to post on LinkedIn, but you can also go to workflowsandespressos.com and click on Ask Meaghan. Upload. I am 87. Don't upload. There's nothing to upload. Write in the box any questions that you have for me, and I would love to either do a whole episode on it or answer your questions in future episodes. Do not forget to subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms, and I will see you next week. Bye.